Your reflections on lockdown. On balance, was it all worth it?
Possibly not. Obviously, there was a need for taking special measures. But what I'm really worried about was that there's been a tendency to turn citizens into potential patients. And I think the government and the different institutions tended to turn grown-ups, mature grown-ups, into children. So there's been a tendency to infantilize everybody. And it seemed that at a certain point, every aspect of our life became medicalized. Everything was all about public health, to the point at which issues like freedom, our capacity to think for ourselves, being able to use common sense were all marginalized. And it seemed to me what you had for a very brief period of time, not that brief as it happens, was the rule of the expert. It was all about what science says, what research shows. And that, to some extent, created the condition where a lot of people became extremely scared and wary, lost sight of who they were, lost sight of their democratic rights. And even to this point, even now that lockdown is finished, there is still a significant section of British society that is scared to put the lockdown behind them, that still believes that wearing masks is the responsible thing to do, that is continually worried about sort of falling ill to this silent and invisible disease. And that kind of fear, which has been created and institutionalized, I think is one of the sad legacies of the whole experience.
And I'd like you to sort of explain from your field of study, sociology, what has been looked at basically in relation to the effects of the pandemic, because of course we've heard from virologists and epidemiologists and even behavioral psychologists throughout this pandemic. What can sociology as a field of study tell us about the way we've changed as a society during the pandemic?
I think what it tells us is that our relationship to the wider world, to society, has altered quite fundamentally. So, for example, one of the accomplishments of the whole experience has been to create what I would characterize as a lockdown lifestyle, where people, in a sense, want to continue with the way of life that they became used to during the lockdown. And a lot of people find it very difficult to go back to work. There's many institutions, offices, civil service, where more than 25% of employees still insist that it's far better for them not to engage in a physical interaction with their fellow workers. And I think that's really bad for society, because it atomizes us, it makes us feel increasingly lonely and on our own. And I think that that tendency to fear social engagement and to interact with each other is really, really a corrosive legacy of the whole process.